All right. You ready to get this party started, Lucy
Yeah,
Bradden?
I think so. I'm looking a little bit like the wild woman of the hills today. At least I don't have a John McEnroe headband on.
What? Did you just make fun of my headband? Oh my God. Maggie's like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Is that funny? Are you
For
the
those
girl?
people watching on YouTube, you missed the bit before we started recording where Karen put her headband on and it was across her hair and her hair was sticking up and she looked like an
It
80s
was, I
tennis
was going to say, it was
star.
like legit 1986. I was totally rocking it. Although I feel like right now, 1986 is a bit back. It's like 80s plus 60s and 70s. Fashion has taken like a really weird left
Mhm.
turn, and I'm not sure I can keep up with it.
No,
It's
I'm just
like,
putting my head in the sand and
it's
ignoring
like
all
not
of
that I
that.
ever have in my whole life. You can ask my sister. It's like high-waisted jeans, which I'm like, ooh, like they make me a little nauseous.
No, it's the mom jeans, like the
Oh my
ones that are
God.
wide at
Yeah,
the hips and
from
then
like,
narrow at the bottom. They're such a bad look. They don't
it's
suit me at
not,
all.
they don't suit anyone, not one person. Skinny people look dumb in them. Big people look dumb in that. It's like a universally unattractive. Like there's certain fashions I know, understand they have to get like recycled, but there's certain that like just don't need to come back.
No, but here's the thing. Why aren't I know they're not comfortable, but why aren't they recycling like 18th century fashion? Because that shit looked so cool.
Right.
I could so
Yeah. Oh my
rock
God.
like
I
I know corsets aren't
know.
comfy. That's the thing. But like those
No,
corsets and then those big skirts and then shawls that come round. I love that look. I think it's so elegant.
no, but I
Women look
think
so good in it.
yeah, they're super beautiful. But actually, I think the whole thing that corsets are uncomfortable is a myth because
It
I
is, yeah. I
have
know.
you heard of oh she is my favorite, hands down my favorite YouTuber, and I love YouTube. And oh my God, I can't believe we've never talked about this before actually. She's from Poland and her name is, and I'm gonna butcher it. Hold on, I have to find her because I love her. Um crap. She focuses on like historical fashion. That's like her
Oh, I
main.
love those kind of YouTube videos.
She's hilarious. She's so clever. She actually went to I think she got her master's degree or one of she has a degree. She went to Scotland for it. For
Oh,
like
really?
historical faction. Yeah, fashion. Yeah, she does. But she does like deep dives. Oh my God, I have to find her. It's like Katrina or Katriana, and I'm gonna like butcher her name. I just know her because I love her. I have to find this immediately. Okay, so her name is Carolina with a K,
Mm-hmm.
Zabrowska. And Lucy, you have
Oh, I'm gonna check her
to
out.
check her out. She is so smart and so creative and hilarious. Just all of those, imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything is on all this historical faction. But the reason I bring that up is she does this whole thing. She was like, corsets were not uncomfortable because they were tailor made to fit
Mm-hmm.
your body and no one else's. So it's actually like all of your curves are like being miraculously and
Yeah.
perfectly supported. So
And they're probably a lot different from off the, I
yeah, they're
nearly
not
said
made of
off the cuff,
plastic.
but
They're not like
off the shelf
plastic how they're made
corsets that
now.
you can get now.
Yeah,
Yeah. And actually,
exactly.
most women in those days didn't wear corsets as such, but those stays, which are
Right. Built
totally
in,
different.
and they're
And
built into your clothes.
yeah,
So they're
like,
actually remarkably
and I just
comfortable.
think they look so
They're
nice.
beautiful. Oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
know. I know. You're going to love her channel so much. I'm just warning you. She
Mhm.
just passed 1 million subs.
Wow,
Yeah,
well done
I
her.
she's amazing. She deserves it. She's so funny. Okay, sorry. I just had to fangirl out about her. We were just
That's
talking about
fine.
sharing our favorite like podcasts and books, and I was like, she is hands down my favorite YouTuber. I love her.
Yeah, I'm gonna check her out. I
Yeah.
got some books this week. Growing.
So did I.
I'm gonna need a new
So did
house
I. I
soon
know.
for more
I
books.
know. What did you
Um,
get? What did you get?
I got so I actually went into my main city, which is Aberdeen, for the first time in
It's lockdown.
a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe since I think the last time I went in was February 2020.
Wow. God.
And I just really needed to go and get a few things that I couldn't order online. And there is a secondhand bookshop there that is called the Oxfam Bookshop. Oxfam is a big charity. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've got it in the States. And they've got a
I've
secondhand bookshop. And so I had a look in that bookshop, and because it's Scottish and it's in Aberdeen, they have quite a lot of stuff on local history and stuff like that that they wouldn't necessarily have if it was in another part of the UK. But I got this really cool book that I haven't started reading yet, but I just thought it looked so interesting. It's called Within the Hollow Hills, and it's an anthology of new Celtic writing.
Oh, new.
Yeah. New from...
That's cool. Yeah, what does new mean? Like
new from
2021 Celtic hits?
1994.
Oh, that's cool.
Because it's secondhand.
Right.
But yeah, it's got a foreword by George Mackay Brown. Is he not one of the ones that we talk about?
It's not ringing any bells, but that doesn't really mean anything.
He's a writer apparently that is from Orkney, I think, but it's just it looked really interesting. It looks like it might have some cool stories that maybe we could tell on our podcast.
So would that be like this? Is that like new folklore, or are they retelling of old stories?
I'm not sure.
Oh, well, I'll be excited to find out.
Do you know what? I'm not sure. It just looked interesting, and it was $3.99. Which is a bargain.
Yeah, totally.
And
that's okay. I was just wondering when you said it was
like an interesting book. And then this one, which is called Healing Threads, and it is a book about traditional medicines of the Highlands and Islands.
Oh, that's really neat.
This book is by someone called Mary Beath, and I just think that'll be so interesting.
Well, yeah, and that might be a good add-on to the Scottish herbs and fairy lore book that we have.
Definitely. So most definitely. So in this book, it's got chapter headings such as folk healers and clan patronage, medieval medicine, monks in medicine, magical water, and smelly onions. That's the name of a chapter. What? I know.
You got to read that one first.
Sounds super. Well, first is a very long list of a huge amount of books that I haven't read yet. And then, do you want to hear the really cool thing?
How rad my hair looks right now. Yeah.
So years ago, I know that my granny got put in a book. She told me about it years. Oh,
sorry, we're having technical difficulties.
She told me that she was included in this book, and for some reason I just never got myself a copy of it, and I found it in the secondhand bookstore.
That's really cool.
And it is a book called The Road to Drumnafunner, and Drumnafunner is the name of the house that my granny grew up in when she was a little kid in the early part of the 20th century. So my granny was born in 1912.
That whole book is based on her house?
It's based on the northeast of Scotland, and there's one chapter about that particular house. Okay. And it's all about my granny's family.
No way.
No, and like here is a photograph of my grandmother. This is her. I'm pointing to her if you're looking at YouTube.
She's clearly the most beautiful one of all of them.
And all her brothers and sisters. And this photo was, I think, taken in the 60s.
Wait, maybe. I'm sorry. Wait, what? Those are all her brothers and sisters?
Yeah, she had a load of brothers
a dozen people in there. So they're all your like great aunts and uncles.
Yeah, none of them are living now, but this photo is taken in 63.
Or that would be your great. No, that would be your great. Yeah, just your great aunts and uncles. Wow, that's your whole family.
I know. So it was such a cool find.
That's a really cool find.
And it's got, I'm looking forward to reading it. I haven't read it yet.
Were you like squealing in the store?
Yeah, I actually went up to the guy at the counter, and he was just this young guy in his 20s, and I thought he probably thinks I'm the most boring.
He's like, I
thing in the world.
Literally could not care.
In this book. Did you know that my granny's in this book? And I found the page, and he was a cool guy because he was totally here for it. He was really interested. He was like, oh my goodness, that's so cool.
That's
and
really
then
sweet.
to top it off, I did say to him, I'm just hoping one day that I'm going to stumble upon Catherine Briggs books in
Oh,
these kinds of bookshops, thinking that he wouldn't know what the hell I was talking about,
and
and
he
that he would
did.
say, oh, there's one over there and it's only £3.99. And he went, yeah, no. Those ones we sell on our website for lots of money.
Oh yeah, because they're out of
Yeah.
print. They're like super rare. And she's
Yeah,
a
I was
big
hoping to get the
deal.
encyclopedia
Yeah,
fairies,
right.
you know, that's £150 or whatever online.
Yeah.
But he's like, no. When we get those, if we ever get those, they go on our website. And they said, and I was like, shoot, like he knows, like even he in his 20s
Yeah.
knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, she's a big deal. That's why.
Yeah, she is a big deal. So then I went onto Amazon and did a bit more shopping. And I found some cool books. We were discussing these actually, weren't we? I don't know if it was on podcast or off podcast, because we do a lot of
I have that one.
podcasts.
Yeah, I have that one.
So I think I got it because you got it, and
Yes.
it looked really good. Notes on the Folklore of the Northern Counties, and that's by William Henderson.
Yes.
Amazon are actually reproducing, or somebody, because Amazon does print on demand now, are uploading these old texts that are out of print.
I know, and thank goodness they are, because
it's really cool.
It is really, really cool. The only thing that's not cool is the freaking covers.
Could I know, I wish somebody
any lamer, like, in the world. They could have like a kindergartner whip out a better design than this. Like, come on.
But you know what's funny, Karen? You just held up one that said superstitions of the Highlands and Islands of Scotland. Did you?
I did.
Yeah. Mine has a different cover.
Yeah, well, I noticed that too. Some of them are a little tiny sassy, but like barely.
Still not sassy enough.
No, but this is just boring snoring. Like, come on.
But this one does sound interesting. And this is by John Gregerson Campbell.
Yeah, and there's two Campbells back in the day. And back in the day, I mean the 1800s, that were the real like main folklorists who did the hugest, most significant folklore research and note-taking on all of their research. And so I've been collecting that. I collected another one, speaking of books. I grabbed that one, and then I also this week, speaking of new books from Amazon, collected his Witchcraft and Second Sight in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland. Yes. Why do you get all the good covers? I get the late colors.
Yours looks thicker than mine.
No, I'm just kidding. Your print's probably smaller. They vary so much.
This is small print.
Yeah, that's
for people that are updated in their glasses prescription, which I'm not. So I might have to sit down with the magnifying glass.
That's why I had to get my first readers to read the Fairy Faith of the Celtic Countries. Was so tiny, and I was like, I literally can't read this book, so I had to go buy my first.
This one looks really good. So we're obviously on the same wavelength. We're buying up all the same books. Witchcraft and Second Sight in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, and this one is also by John Gregerson Campbell. Yeah, and it looks so interesting.
I know.
I can't wait to, I might even have an afternoon in bed sometime soon and just lie and read. It's really indulgent.
This is awful. Okay, I have literally not picked this book up yet until right now, is where I just was flipping through. I opened the page to Madness. Oh, this is terrible.
Enlighten us.
Okay, it says, in the Highlands, as elsewhere, rough usage, often amounting to brutality, was believed to be the most suitable treatment for those suffering under this, the greatest of human misfortunes, mental aberration. Basically, people they thought were mad. On a Thursday, it should be no other day. Had to be Thursday. A person was... Of course,
because it's late night shopping day?
Yeah. A person was taken to the lunatic behind him. A person was to take the lunatic behind him on a gray horse. Gray is italicized because it has to be gray on a Thursday. And gallop at the horse's utmost speed 3 times round a boundary mark, and then to an immovable stone. On making the madman speak to this stone, the cure was complete.
He had to speak to it. What did he say? Hi, my name's Jimmy.
This is awful. A plan of which there are traditions in the the Hebrides was to put a rope around the madman's waist and drag him after a boat till he was nearly dead. Okay, we're going to reserve a few episodes for this amazing
most
book.
definitely.
What?
Most definitely. I like that if that's horrific. What you got just from randomly opening a page.
Right? They basically, oh my God, it goes on and on. Oh my God. They basically almost kill them until they're like speechless. And they're like, oh, that's better. He shut up. Like, done. Oh,
I know, because we made him do it on a Thursday behind a gray horse.
Yep. And then the times they didn't work, they're like, it must have been because it was on a Monday. Let's keep trying every day. And then, but Thursday, they're like, nailed it. We got the cure. We're done here. Oh my God, that's horrific. That's horrific.
That's just hilarious. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm not going to read it out because it's a lot longer, but I'm just flicking through and there's headings like things like cure for the evil eye.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of that in
stone. Charm to keep away harm in a lawsuit.
Oh, that's a good one. Ooh, fairy arrow is another one too.
Charm, there's lots of gems in this book.
Charm
most definitely.
For toothache, charm for consumption. I'm going to try these out. See how they work.
Are you suffering from consumption?
I'm not going to go to the dentist. I'm just going to recite that charm.
There's one heading that just says coffin.
Oh God.
I know. I can't wait to hear that. And then here, you'll like this one, Karen.
Oh my God, I just found
noises of glasses to be used at funerals.
Okay, shut the fuck up. That's literally the page that I was opening that I was just going to read out loud. That's so weird. Okay, that's amazing. You don't want to see what else I bought this week? I had to have it because I was jealous of yours.
Oh, yeah, the Abby Luggers, Banshees and Boggarts book.
How could I not? When you showed it to me, I was like, I want that book too. So I got
FOMO. Big FOMO.
I really did. Well, the artwork combined with the stories, like, come on. It's all the things together.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we're clearly like both of us developing a little bit of a problem.
Like spending my retirement money on folklore books, basically. What's happening.
I know. So the last one that I got, because I don't have enough books making this huge pile.
Yes.
I'm gonna be like one of those, those hoarders TV programs where they come in and they see and they've got like piles and they've got just a little narrow corridor
to like get by all your books. Yes. Yep. That's your house.
I bought another Morgan Daimler one. It was
you did? Which one?
And this one looked interesting. It's just a fairies guide to the fair folk, Celtic fair folk, and I thought that it would be a nice little read because the only one I have of hers is the Dictionary of Fairies. But then I looked her up on Amazon. She has absolutely
like a dozen
of books.
Yeah, she does. Yep.
And after we had our little conversation in the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast Facebook group, I was like super excited that I'd had a wee mini chat with Morgan Daimler. I went and checked out what other books she had and decided to buy this one to give it a read. I think it's going to be nice kind of bedtime reading because it's
that's the best kind.
It's probably, some of the older ones you've got to concentrate a bit more when you read them because the language is a little bit
it's a little bit thicker. Although, to be frank, I am actually surprised at how well written is the wrong way to say it, but just how accessible those written. Older books really are. And I don't know if that's because I'm obsessed just with the topic, so it's easy for me to get beyond it because I'm like so desperate for to get the gist. But I really find that normally when I'm reading history books or historical books from that age, I really do struggle. I'm just bored or confused. I'm like, this is too hard. And these ones I find they're very well written. Like Catherine Briggs is like a good storyteller in addition to being a great researcher. So it's like actually you get so much out of it. So highly recommend.
Yeah. And who knew there were you can end up, it's just like when we do our research for our episodes, you start off reading one thing.
Yeah.
And then you see something referenced and you're like, hang on a minute, I need to go and check that out. And it takes you down all these paths like a branching tree, like a wee rabbit hole of
and
all
then
these
into your Amazon shopping cart.
and then before you know it, but it's the same with books, because you're like, oh, hang on a minute, there are these books, and then they're connected to these books, and then this author references this person, so I'm going to check out their books, and before you know it, you've spent all your money, you've got no room left in your house to walk around in, and you don't get any work done because all you want to do is read.
Pretty much. But I'm not sorry. It's super fun. And I also, what's funny is that I didn't see that coming, which is dumb because I'm such a book hoarder anyways. I'm like obsessed, and I didn't see that happening. But now I'm laughing at myself for like,
I know, me too.
Dumbass. What did you think was going to happen?
At you as well.
That's nice. I can take it. I got it.
No, I'm laughing at myself too. I know, because actually, and he doesn't listen, so I can say this.
Yeah.
I had spent the last 2 years telling my son off for his book obsession. Like every time books arrive, because he orders from all these websites, and every few days there's another book on the doorstep. And I'd always find myself saying things like, you're never going to have time to read all these. You've got a library in your room. Like, when are you going to read them all? He's like, I need them all. I need them all because they're all research and it's all related. And now I'm a hypocrite because I've done exactly the same.
No, I've always been like that for book. And I'm the worst with my kids. It was like when they were little, I'll never forget. I think my oldest at that time was like 2. I think I only had one child at that point. And I was at my sister's house, and was a reading specialist. And so I went to her house, and we're about the same age. And I went to her house where her kids are also little, and she had like 1,000,000 books. And I was like, oh my God, I think I had like 5, and she had like 500 literally, and was like, oh my God, her son's a little bit older than my oldest. And I can't remember what she said, but she was basically like, instead of buying toys, she's like, I have no book budget. And I was like, wait, for your little teeny tiny like people in your house? And she's like, yes. She's like, there's like nothing better than buying a book. Whatever she said, that exact sentence, I took it to heart, and it started in my tradition, this ritual of like, we would go to Barnes and Noble. And I basically, to my kids, when they were like starting at that very teeny tiny, like 2, and then the next one was born, and then the next one was born, I would take them to Barnes and Noble, and I would let them take home. It wasn't like the library, because then you'd have to give them back. We went to the library too, but I'd be like, pick out like 3 books to buy, to purchase and take home. And every night, it was like, since they were fetuses, I would like read to them before bed, and I still, like, Shauna and I still read before we go to bed every single night. And my kids developed this insane reading habit. Like, they were reading like nuts. And it was just because I was like, read. Like, I was like, yes, books, yes to books, yes to books. So instead of, we go to the toy store, and I would be like, no, no, no. And then we go to the Beck store, and I would be like, yes, yes, yes. And it did so much for them in school.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it?
It was like crazy. Like, we go to a teacher conference, and they'd be like, I can tell your kid's a reader. I'm like, oh, why? What makes you say that? You met him like a week ago. Like, we're just meeting you. They're like, she's like, I have teachers tell me like they can look in a classroom of kids, and after one like English lesson or writing lesson or whatever it is, tell which were the kids that read and which were the kids that didn't. I'm like, that's actually sounds really mean to those poor kids that aren't readers. But I just will always be so thankful to my sister for being like, books are like everything.
It is such
like for a growing mind. It is. And you give your gift this gift of like comprehension and like learning that they like get really so much out. I don't know.
There's way worse things that you could be spending your money on. So
I know, right?
Like,
and I'm so happy that I did that.
That we're buying lots.
I know. No, and so I've just ever since then I just never felt bad about my weird book obsession. And I'm happy that I spent all that money. Okay, that was a big passionate like
that was a rant
soliloquy. It's only 10 in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
5 I'd be drinking right now, but I'm just drinking the dregs of my freezing cold coffee. Oh my gosh.
Let's dive into today's episode.
Oh, right. What? Oh, we're here to talk about something.
We are here to talk about something, and I don't want you to get too disappointed, because it's not a fairy.
Well, it better not be scary because I legit had bad dreams about ghosts last night. Thank you because of one of our listeners,
Oh
Jamie,
yeah, that photograph.
submitted that
Oh my
freaking
goodness
horrifying
me.
ghost photo, and I literally couldn't sleep last night because of that.
Yeah,
Jamie,
that
you're in
was.
trouble. She did
Well,
warn me though.
can we put it on our Insta?
Yeah, we can. And I'm going to
Yeah,
put it on our blog. It was horror. It was terrifying, actually.
it was. It was a ghost in a window, and it was super spooky.
Yeah.
I read that email. It was like 10 o'clock at night that I read that email. So
No.
I most definitely was freaked out for the rest of the evening.
God, what the hell?
This isn't really a ghost story as such, although there is a little ghosty element at the end. But you're probably gonna be like super disgusted.
Oh, that's not usually an emotion that we fiddle around with on this podcast. Okay.
I stumbled across this story. I don't know how. I stumbled across this story and I was so weirded out by it. But I was also shocked that I had never heard of it. So if you've heard of it, being a non-Scot, I'll be really pissed off that you've heard of it and I haven't.
Okay. I don't know.
And I bet you turn around and go, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But it is the legend of SAWNEY Bean.
I don't know it.
Heard of the legend of SAWNEY Bean?
If I've heard it, I forgot it. So no, I'm going in blind.
I was surprised. I did think maybe you'd have heard of it because you've done touristy Edinburgh things, and there is in the Edinburgh dungeon. Apparently, there's a ride. There's a SAWNEY Bean exhibition and ride that you can go on. I've never been to the Edinburgh dungeon, so I didn't know that. And apparently, this is a famous legend, spooky, disgusting tale from Scotland, and I had never heard of it. So when I started reading it, I was like, oh my goodness me, we have to talk about this, even though it's not cute and fairies or scary and fairies.
No,
scary fairies. It's not scary fairies, scary fairies.
Well, no, we got to mix it up so nobody gets bored. So I'm in. No, I've not heard of that. So now I'm extra excited.
This story, if it was real, but there is a lot of debate.
Isn't it all real?
It's actually, well, there's a lot of debate over. There's a lot of debate over, but this is actually real. And I will get into that at the end. There's a little bit of discussion, but I would say that generally speaking, most made up stories, I think, have a basis in reality somewhere. They don't just get completely made out of absolutely nowhere. Usually there's something, but
well, in my head it's real. So shoot.
Oh well, I don't think you want it. Do you know what?
Oh no,
you haven't heard it yet. You don't want it to be real. You really don't.
I'm suspending belief.
So this apparently took place in the 16th century, around the time of the reign of King James the Sixth and 6/1. Yes, it's always a bit confusing when you read about him on websites, because he was King James the Sixth and the First.
Yep.
So he was the sixth of Scotland and the first of England. And this is about an incestuous clan of cannibals.
What? That's like every human taboo together in one family.
And it was just so weird and gross. I had to tell you all about it.
All right. Oh.
So,
ew, wait, they had sex with each other and then ate each other? That's a lot.
They didn't eat each other, Karen.
You said they were cannibals.
Yeah, they didn't eat each other though. Just you wait and see. So I found this interesting because his name was Alexander Bean, but his nickname was SAWNEY, and that's in Outlander, isn't it?
Who's SAWNEY in Outlander?
Yeah, Jamie. Jamie is SAWNEY. Remember, there's the little wooden snake that his brother carved, SAWNEY.
Oh, yeah.
And his sister says, Jenny says, oh, it's a nickname on his name, Alexander. Oh. And so I think that the nickname SAWNEY is a common nickname, which is just so weird. A common nickname for the name Alexander, which I don't understand why, because the two have absolutely no relation.
Right.
There is another name Yeah, there's a what?
I said just a fun fact. That's cool.
Yeah, well, there are other names that you get funny nicknames from that seem to have no
Yeah.
relation. And there was one down in Yorkshire where my dad was from, and like everybody with this certain name, and I can't remember what it was, gets called Nobby. And I don't know why. Like it's just, it has nothing to do with it. So
Yeah.
anyway, his nickname was Sonny Bean, and apparently he grew up in East Lothian, which is near Edinburgh.
Okay.
During the 16th century, and his father was just a tradesperson. Most websites said he was like a ditch digger, which must have been a pretty crappy job in those days. And Sonny thought himself above that, or was too lazy or whatever, but didn't want to do that kind of work. I guess in the days when people followed on from their parents' profession and just did the same profession. But instead, he got in with a woman. It's always a woman, isn't it? He got in with a woman who was called Agnes. Actually, she was called Black Agnes Douglas. And the word black was to do with her spirit rather than the color of her. Because she was rumored to be into witchcraft and super evil. So I love how they blame the woman in this for starting it all off, but I'm sure that wasn't actually true. So him and Agnes hooked up. They were like kindred evil spirits. They were a little bit like the Scottish Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, okay.
Whatever.
Yep. I think, is there a bar in Edinburgh named after her? Because I feel like I've heard like
there could easily be, because this is a big Scottish legend.
Yeah, I bet you there is,
that I hadn't heard of.
Yeah. Well, you're not a tourist. All the tourists do get spoiled with all the good stories.
I know. So once they got together, they actually moved, and they moved to the West Coast.
Okay.
And they moved to the West Coast in an area in Ayrshire, which is kind of southwest. So it's south of Glasgow. And in between these two towns, which were villages at the time, I guess, one called Girvan and one called Ballantrae, there was a cave called Benane Cave. I think I'm saying it right. I might not be. It's spelled Benane, Benane Cave. And instead of, because they didn't want to do rubbish jobs like digging ditches, they decided to become outlaws.
Ooh.
They started robbing people, ambushing travelers that traveled around the coast and in the villages. And so they would ambush these people. But they soon realized that the best way of getting away with a crime is to get rid of your evidence. So if you're going to ambush and rob people, the best way to get rid of the evidence is to murder the victims so that they don't have any evidence to speak of. So they soon started murdering their victims.
Oh no.
I'm looking at Karen's face.
Oh, I'm getting
Karen's
nervous.
like, I know what's coming and I don't want to hear
it. Yeah.
Don't put your fingers in your ears, young lady. You've got to listen to this. This is my story and you've got to listen whether you like it or not.
Okay.
So then I think they realized that, so they lived in this cave, right? This cave was apparently, some sources say 180 meters deep, but other sources say 600 meters deep.
Wow.
And then other sources say, well, we've gone and measured it and it's nothing like that. So goodness knows, but we don't care. That's a minor fact that we don't care about.
Check. Yes.
But they managed to go unnoticed because they weren't living in the village or the town. They were living in this cave. And actually the cave got blocked by water with a high tide. Twice a day, once a day, I don't know, which meant that nobody suspected that anyone was living there because there was water. But the cave was so deep that they could go to the back of the cave and not be affected by the water. So they were living in this cave. And so to get rid of the victims of their murder sprees, they became cannibals and they ate them. And this went on for 25 years.
Ew. They ate people for 25 years. Why didn't they just throw them in the fire?
I did a little bit of maths. If you're in Scotland, you say maths.
Like plural. I know. It's so fascinating.
I know. So I did a little bit of maths, and it said apparently they cannibalized over 1,000 people over a 25-year period. But it wasn't just the two of them, because they had kids. They had apparently 14 children.
Ew.
And then, Karen, if you want to be even more disgusted, because this story is gross, their 14 children had a whole bunch of granddaughters and grandsons, but those granddaughters and grandsons were all born out of incest between the brothers and sisters, because they were all living in a cave. So they weren't going down the local village to meet a boyfriend or girlfriend and have children with. They just had children amongst themselves. So there was this, so they made their own little clan.
Ew.
48 people living in a cave, which must have been absolutely disgusting. I mean, that would be disgusting enough now when you've got access to cleaning stuff and things like that, but can you imagine in the 1500s?
That is
like a cave near the sea. It's absolutely gross.
That is beyond gross.
And not very comfortable. I can't imagine that's very comfortable.
No, or sanitary, or I mean, there's like 8,000 things wrong with this story. Ew.
Well, that's why I decided to tell it, because I wanted to weird you out.
God.
I know. So they had all these incestuous family members, and between them they butchered and killed over 1,000 people over 25 years. So I did the maths, and that worked out to about 40 a year.
They didn't even hunt animals, they just hunted people.
I know, which is just less than one a week.
Oh my God.
But then could 48 people live off one human body a week? Surely that's not enough meat. Is that? Sorry, I had to go there.
I love how you're really trying to figure it out. If I had one arm for breakfast, does that mean I should save a foot for lunch? Like, ew!
They're portioning it out like they're on Survivor, or those programs where they drop them off on an island, those programs where you get dropped off on an island
naked,
and you've got to survive.
Yeah, have you seen the naked?
There's a naked one. I
Yep,
haven't seen that. I should watch it.
Actually, I did see that one, and they got so sick. They got so
yeah, because they're rubbish at looking after themselves.
Yeah, I know, and they're drinking unpurified water. Shocking that they would get sick, but oh my God!
But none of them end up cannibalizing each other, which is a good thing.
No, yeah.
Can you imagine if that happened on one of those shows?
They're awkward. Keep rolling. This is gold. They would love it.
They don't find the one goat that the film crew have planted in the jungle for them to find, because all of a sudden, usually after they're super starving, after a whole week, they come across a goat or a similar creature that they then have to kill.
Right.
So they have to see who's strong
enough to go through
ballsy enough to go and kill and butcher and cook the animal. And then usually you get somebody who's a vegetarian that's totally starving,
becomes friends with it. I'm not going to do it. We'll pray together.
I don't care how starving I am. I'm not going to eat the goat. I'm still going to just drink the coconut water. And can you imagine if they're well, actually, see Robert over here, he's really fucking annoying. Let's just lure him into the forest.
Yeah. We'll just chop
Nobody will know.
The
cameras aren't hidden. They're not on us all the time. Nobody will know. And then we'll come back. We're look, we found some.
Oh my God.
Sorry. I had to go there.
There's just so many. There's very few there's very few instances of cannibalism in the world. Like there's just very few. When I was an anthropology major, we learned about like the 5 human taboos, and like incest and cannibalism are like 2 of the 5. They just don't happen.
What are the other 5?
I don't remember.
I
went to school a really long time ago, but I remember distinctly learning about those as being like like across every culture, like no matter what your beliefs are, like there is no eating of people. There's no having sex with your relatives, like, sisters.
Yeah,
like
I can understand
cousins, yes,
why both of those
brothers,
are
sisters.
taboo, to be honest. They're both pretty
like a universal like
disgusting.
truth, like no matter how base we are. But then there are these gross exceptions, which is just
and I have another reference to tell you about that. I'll tell you about in a little bit.
Is there any information about how they found out about this? Did they eventually just get caught? Like, how does this resolve?
We're getting to the juicy bit. Well, juicy is maybe the wrong word for this episode.
Lucy, come on, you did it.
Like rubbing my hands together and going at the disgustingness. So we had all these incestuous relatives, probably pretty skanky, living in a deep dark cave, killing all these people. The locals were wondering why all these people were going missing, and they couldn't figure it out. A lot
of mouths to feed.
And apparently they occasionally limbs would wash up on the shore. But I don't get that bit, because if you're cannibalizing a person, surely you're going to eat all of them. You're not going to be like, I'm going to eat all the torso and the legs, but I'm going to leave the arms because they're not so tasty and like just put them out to sea. That doesn't make sense to me. But let's remember, this is a sensationalist story, so it's not necessarily all true.
How do you know?
So apparently they would pickle the leftovers in barrels as well. So they would like obviously if they can't eat you can't eat a whole human in one sitting. You have to pickle what you can't eat and preserve it.
Well, it's a long winter.
Make it in some beef jerky or whatever.
Oh my god.
And so the locals for a while thought it was animals, because they just found bones or whatever being washed up on the shore. And so they got away with it for 25 years, but there was suspicion, and there's an unusually large number of disappearances in this area.
And if it's always like the same path to and from some place, and like people always kind of go in and never come out, then you'd think after a while they'd be like, something's going on, like in that.
Well, yeah, but it is 15th century Scotland, so I don't know, I don't know how much.
You're saying they're all dumb?
No, I wasn't saying that.
I think they weren't that dumb. Maybe they thought it was a giant fairy ring that like everyone was entering and never coming
maybe
back.
They thought it was just the fairies or whatever. So then, unfortunately for the beans, I have to interrupt here because I just forgot to say that one website that I was reading this story on was hilarious, because it's called Historic UK, this website, because they kept referencing the grandchildren as beanie babies.
Wow, that's awesome. I love
they were like SAWNEY Bean and his wife and children and the beanie babies. They had lots of beanie babies. And I was like, that is perfect.
Yeah, it is.
It's just perfect.
Yeah, it is.
So so one night they ambushed this couple that were riding down the nearby road, coming home from some sort of gathering or fair, and the woman was killed, and as they were disemboweling her, it said, sorry.
Glad breakfast was 4 hours ago.
Sorry. The man was quite strong and actually started fighting back, and because he started fighting back, there was like a bit of a pot. They didn't manage to kill him straight away, and before they could overtake the man and kill him, some drunken revelers from the fair came riding along the same road, and they came across the clan trying to kill this guy and the
Right.
dead woman. And the beanies had to give up, and there were too many people. They couldn't just kill them all. So they gave up and they ran away. But by then they had been identified. So they'd been seen and they had been spotted and people knew who they were. So word got out, apparently, because he wants to take some credit for it, to King James.
Oh, right. I forgot about him. Yep.
Yeah. And he heard about this
Mm-hmm.
and he decided that he wanted all the fame and the glory. So he gathered together a search team of 400 men and some bloodhounds, and they went out in search of the Bean clan, SAWNEY beans. And so they finally tracked them down to the cave. I don't know how. They just managed to finally realize that because of the bloodhounds, they finally realized that they were actually in this cave. So this is where there's like a branching of two stories. So one account says that when so basically, sorry, I'm going to backtrack a bit because I forgot to tell you. So when they found this cave and they went in, they found all these limbs like hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, that is a nasty.
And like human remains, and then
like
big piles of loot. So like silver and gold and like people's possessions.
And what's even the point of like stealing all that if you're just living your whole life hidden away in a cave, you know?
I know. Doesn't make any sense.
I wonder if they had like released one of the Beanie Babies out into the world, like go to the market and like sneak and get some like, you know,
chocolate.
New blankets. Yeah, chocolate. Get some new ale.
Get some wine. Get some wine for your granddad.
Wash down livers with it. You know, they were drinking.
Douglas is his wife. To wash down Mrs. McKinley or whatever.
Right.
I know. Well,
that's gross. That's the visual in my head of like just body parts dangling from like it's like disgusting. Very like Blair Witch Project a little bit. I know. Things hanging from trees.
It's gross. And so apparently when they were captured, the crime was so heinous that they were just instantly marched to the toll booth in Edinburgh, which actually, if you look at a map of Scotland, is not that close to Ayrshire. Like the West Coast and the East Coast are not that close.
No, they're not.
So it's quite a march. Yeah. I don't understand why they didn't just take them to a local jail or Glasgow even.
Well, if he wanted,
Glasgow's a lot closer
and bigger. Although I don't
that's know where some of this story falls apart in my eyes. Like it goes from Ayrshire to Edinburgh, which is. But anyway, that's me I get bogged down in minor details sometimes. It's like
I'm the opposite.
So they got marched to the toll booth in Edinburgh, and then they didn't get a trial because it was pretty obvious what they were. So they got executed straight away.
Right away.
But they got executed by them. Are you ready? Are you ready for this?
I'm bracing myself. Go.
I know you haven't even had your lunch yet.
No, I know.
So the men got their bits and pieces cut off. I'm going to say bits and pieces.
Twigs and berries.
The men got their bits and pieces cut off. And they also got their hands and their feet cut off.
Oh, God.
And then they bled to death.
Oh.
Which is kind of gross.
That's and
that's like
a slow death too. Oh,
I know, but they were super into like ugly deaths in those days.
We still are.
If you think about
watch the movie. Look at the movies we watch. We're like still into it. Let's not get ourselves.
Yeah, but we don't actually like have it happen in the market square.
True, but we make it so realistic that like they're really
that we don't need to. Yeah, maybe. But you know, they did do like hanging, drawn, and quartering in those days, which like I just can't even imagine that the thought of it just like makes me feel really, really squeamish. And then apparently the women Agnes and the women and kids were tied to stakes and burned alive.
Which is almost worse. I think getting burned alive.
What's worse, getting your bits cut off and bleeding to death, or getting burned alive?
I'm gonna say burning alive. I feel like that's such a slow of a pain.
If you had to choose, which one would you choose?
I would choose bits. I would choose bits, hands, and feet over burning. What about you?
Do I have to choose?
Yes, you do. Choose right now.
Oh,
you're a witch. The gift of choice.
I don't know.
I feel like you would bleed out faster than you would die
Sophie's
burning.
Choice question.
Because also, like, the fire takes a while to like get going too.
Oh, yeah.
So then
it's bleeding. And actually, maybe bleeding to death at some point you kind of just go delirious and you don't really know what's happening.
Yeah.
Whereas,
right. So 2 votes for bits,
hands, and pieces. That's a new t-shirt
Oh
slogan.
God. 2 votes for bits, hands, and pieces. That is some dark shit right there.
Maybe we could put a poll up on Instagram. See what everyone else. Tell us on Instagram which one you would go for.
And then we go from 4 followers to 0 in like 5 minutes. And there it goes.
Ginger, which one would you have?
Ginger and Nikki, what do you think? What's your vote? Oh my God, hilarious.
So, apparently when they were dying, SAWNEY cursed the cave and cursed everyone and said, "It isn't over. It will never be over."
Oh. And of course, everyone believed him because he was a cannibal wizard.
So the second version.
Oh, I forgot there was there's like another ending. Yeah. Alternate ending.
The second version is that they placed gunpowder at the entrance to the cave and made everyone suffocate inside it. But I don't know how that would work because the cave isn't blocked now. So it's not a blocked cave.
I can't believe it's still there and you can like go.
The cave is still there.
Is it like a tourist attraction?
Yes. Yeah, kind of. There are some YouTube videos, people having gone to the cave.
What's the cave called?
Benin Cave.
Oh God, like named after them.
So there's actually,
you told me that. How do you spell it again?
Bennane. I mean, it's not a tourist attraction in that there's like a Starbucks next to it and like an entrance fee and you can buy a t-shirt. It's not that kind of, it is just in the wilds of Scotland, but some people choose to go and check it out. And one person that went to check it out was a psychic medium. Oh. And apparently his name was Tom Robinson.
Okay. Oh, I can see it. I'm looking on YouTube right now, and even the thumbnails, you can see pictures of it.
I know. And so apparently he went to visit the cave, and he said that he found evidence that it was haunted by several of the family's victims. And that he heard a woman's scream and he saw a female form being dragged into the back of the cave by 12 white lights.
Ooh, that's really creepy.
While a male form was also lying immobilized on the cave floor.
I wouldn't even go visit that cave. That's some creepy ass stuff.
And then he said apparently he went and in 1991, so not that long ago, went and exorcised the cave to get rid of the ghosts, which is kind of a bit of a shame because if you've got a place like that, you want to go ghost hunting there. You don't want to get rid of them. You want to be able to go and experience them, surely.
Do you want to experience cannibal, incestual, murdery ghosts? No, you don't. I have no desire to do that.
I know you don't, but there's plenty of people that would.
That's messed up. No, I don't want to go back and do more.
Apparently SAWNEY's ghost also haunts the cave and people have heard the sound of like teeth on bones. I don't know what that sounds like. No. And apparently people driving on the roads nearby see figures appearing quickly. So they have to like break their cars because like a ghostly
Oh, they're
figure
like being chased through the woods.
appears
Oh,
on the
God,
road.
that's
So I don't know if that's like the clan trying to ambush them to
or
kill
the
them.
victims running for their
No.
lives.
So here's another funny part to the story.
Were there other funny parts to the story?
Yeah,
I don't recall any.
The funny part to this story was your facial expressions as I was telling it.
You're so mean.
So apparently they had one daughter who did not approve of what was going on in this family.
1 out of 48. Okay.
Yeah. She didn't want to have sex with her brothers. She didn't find any of them attractive. She wanted to like branch out on her own. She was a vegetarian. The vegetarian daughter. That was me when I was younger.
Rebellious stage.
And actually even funnier, apparently her name was Elspeth, which was my granny's name.
Ooh, that's a really pretty name.
I know. Elsie for short.
Yeah, it's really
Elsie
pretty.
for short. Elspeth. Such a nice name. Kids aren't called that nowadays.
I know, it's really pretty. It doesn't sound old-timey and
I know. So
awkward.
apparently she left. She was like, I'm leaving. I've had enough of all of you. But she didn't go that far. She settled in Girvan, which is a nearby village. You'd think you'd go a bit further if you wanted to leave.
But if you've lived your whole
life
in a cave,
family,
you don't even know, like, how do you even know what anything is? So
I know, but you think if you were escaping a cannibalistic, incestuous family, you'd say, right, I'm going off to Inverness. But to get away from them.
But if you live in a cave, you don't even know what is in the whole world. Like you probably go 10 feet and you're like, all right, this is my new lease on life. Like you don't even know.
There's no Google Maps to tell you.
No. She knows nothing and knows no one except her incesty besties inside the cave. So
incesty besties? Her incesty besties.
Maybe that should be maybe that could be our t-shirt. One has incesties and the next one has investies, and then you stand next to each other like a little best friends locket. Okay, that would be maybe let's not do that.
No, I'm gonna have to listen back to our old podcast to remember these because I can't even remember the last one, but it was hilarious.
Let's maybe edit that part out actually.
No, it's the best. Leave it in, Billy. Except he doesn't edit anymore.
There's literally no one editing these.
Talking to like the edit gods that we don't actually have yet.
Our ghost producer. Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently she went and lived in Girvan, nearby village. Let's just go to the nearby village. And she planted a tree. And apparently this tree was known as the hairy tree.
Because
there's no explanation.
There's no why. Just HAIRE, like a literally hairy tree.
Yeah, like hair coming from the hairy tree.
Okay.
Because we're in Scotland and we like our weird stories.
I can't even guess where this is even going.
Okay, well, it's going quite cool.
Okay.
Are you listening?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
So when the family was discovered,
yes,
she got outed.
Oh, they were like looking for a decoy. They're like, our daughter's over there. Go get her.
They discovered that who she was and she got outed. And so she was then hung from the hairy tree. Ooh. One source I read said that as the family were captured and marched to Edinburgh, SAWNEY Bean saw her and shouted out like, no, my daughter or something. And that's how she got outed. Okay. But I'm not sure whether that's true or whether any of this story is true, but it's a good story.
I totally believe it.
So there's a little bit of extra folklore connected to this hairy tree because I find this like super interesting that apparently this tree was called a dual tree, D-U-L-E, dual tree,
Okay.
which isn't it's not a breed of tree. That's the wrong word. Species of tree.
You're going to
It's
say
just
brand.
a
It's
brand
the
of
right
tree.
brand.
I nearly said a brand of
I know
tree.
you did.
You called me out on it. It's
I
okay.
did.
Just let's face it, when either of us say anything that's remotely stupid, we have to call each other out on it.
Oh,
on
yeah,
this
yeah.
podcast.
We're not letting that slide.
I
That's
know.
where all the good bits are.
So the brand of tree called the dual tree is not a specific kind of tree as such. It is the name for a tree that is used for gallows.
Ooh.
And so in 1057, King Malcolm put a decree on that every, like, I read it as barony, but it must just be like that area of Scotland should have a specific tree to hang people from, called a dual tree, to be used as a gallows.
It's pretty dark.
And they were also used as gibbets, because, you know, we've spoken about incest and cannibalism. Let's speak about hanging. They were also used as gibbets. So they were used to display the corpses of people after they'd been hung, so the public could see and know not to do the horrible crime that that person had done, like an incentive. What's not
the definition of a gibbet? Because all I know is a gibbet is a special plastic toy that fits in the holes of your crocs.
Your crotch?
Not your crotch. Does anyone wear Crocs in the UK?
Yeah, some people do.
So gibbets are the plastic toys that you shove into the holes of your Crocs. So when you say everyone has to have a gibbet, that's what I'm thinking of.
But a gibbet,
so what is that?
A gibbet is a place where the corpse is. I'm going to read off Wikipedia because that's our source of information. A gibbet is any instrument of public execution.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the gallows tree then. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the gallows tree, but sometimes people were hung there after they'd been executed.
They just leave them. They're like, hey.
Leave them. So it's like for public display. So it puts people off from.
Yeah, that would make sense. I would be put off if I saw a human body dangling from a tree.
There's actually, I know this is like sidestepping from SAWNEY, but I just find it absolutely fascinating that so there are actually these gallows trees, which are also called dual trees in Scotland, which I did not know, were also used by Highland chieftains. They would hang their enemies from them, or they would hang any deserters from them. So they were in well-known places in every area of Scotland. And actually, there's loads of gallows hills. There's a gallows hills not far from me. There's every area has a place called Gallows Hill, which I find really disturbing.
Yeah,
knowing what's happened there,
knowing that's what it's literally for.
Yeah, it's kind of gross. Apparently at one of the castles near me, I don't know if it's Leith House or Fyvie, there's a big tree that is the gallows tree. It's hundreds of years old, and it's the gallows tree, and it is still there, which is kind of gross.
Yeah,
there's a little poem about poor Elsie, which sorry, I can't give you the source because I forgot to write it down. So it could be 5 years old or 200 years old, but it said, under the bough of the hairy tree. I just wonder why it's called hairy tree. Under the bough of the hairy tree, poor Elspeth choked to death. The branches that she grew from sea to help steal her final breath. The tree is now a legend, but someday soon, I'm sure, we'll find the spot where Elspeth died and see the tree once more.
Ooh, that's a good one.
You know,
like a short, sweet.
So yeah, we don't actually know whether this is like a true story or not. I'm gonna end this by making you feel slightly better about all of that gruesomeness.
Sorry.
Maggie doesn't care.
Look
Maggie's
at
fast
Maggie,
asleep.
dead legs.
I know. She's gibbeted. She's gibbeted to
Very
the floor.
distracted.
Because actually, this could be absolute total made up bullshit.
I don't
Because
think
because the first story of SAWNEY Bean didn't surface until the late 1700s.
Oh, that's a long,
And
that's a long time afterwards.
Yes. So it was a long time afterwards. There was actually there's no contemporary writings about this. And one source that I read said if King James VI had actually taken 400 men and found a mass murderer, he would have been all over it, writing all about it,
right,
telling everybody about it. There's nothing in his correspondences about this, so it's probably made up. But actually, people now think that it was made up in the late 1700s in these books and broadsheets that were published down in England, not up in Scotland. And it was a way of making Scots appear like barbarian, disgusting
that's
people.
so mean, like bad propaganda. That's
bad propaganda post Jacobean rebellion.
Okay, that actually makes me so sad.
I thought you were going to say that makes me feel better that it's not true story.
No, it makes me so sad for the Scots because they're like minding their own business, and that is like a horrific tale to be twisting just to make them look bad.
I know. It is. It's kind of sad, isn't it? That
yes, it's very sad.
English
would go to such great lengths.
To say that we're all these weird barbarians,
like incestual barbarians,
marrying our sisters and brothers and killing people. I know.
Oh yeah, that's mean. I hope that that's not true.
Would you rather that actually there was a murderous cannibal in a
that's
cave
actually
in
a tough question.
So which one? It's a bit like hands and feet and bits, or burning. Cannibals or racism?
That's actually hard. That makes me so mad that the Scots would be so, because that, and then to be like, they, yes, had incestual, cannibalistic, and killed 1,000 people. It does sound a little sensational.
It does.
Especially as it being a human taboo. It comes up very rarely. In the cases where they've proven cannibalism, it's only like, it's only for like to thwart absolute starvation and like impending death when you're like stuck on a life raft in the middle of the ocean. And like, that's like really the only cases of it, really.
I know. Well, there's actually another case. It's another quick side note, because even though I said to you yesterday, this is a quick story.
You always say that, and then it's lies. Not that I'm sad, but we don't have
I know, it's because I go on little tangents when I'm researching and find interesting stuff.
It is.
But there was actually another story called The Story of Christy Cleek, and this is a mythical Scottish cannibal from the 14th century. And apparently, but this was during time of famine, and he killed and ate people because of starvation,
right?
But he wasn't stuck on a little island. It was the Grampians, which is a hill range. It's like, could have
like grabbed a rabbit if he really needed to.
He could have grabbed a rabbit if he'd really needed it, or for example, on my daily walks, I see loads of
tubers and berries.
There's tons of raspberries right now. Like you could fend off starvation, I think, if you really wanted to. But so he killed, I think, about 30, and he had a little band of people, and the band of people got caught, but he escaped and apparently went on to live this, like, he got witness protection. He lived a normal life under an assumed name. It would not given to him by the police.
It would be so easy to do that in the 14th century.
In those days, I know, because there was no photographs. Nobody knew what it looked like.
Yeah, you could just like meander over to a different village and be like, I was Bob in that village. Oh, my new name is John. Like, what's up? And
I
like,
know,
no one would be like, oh, well, okay. Like, no one would be like, no, it's not. I wonder
I'm
if they
kind
had
of a
like,
little bit low-key jealous that they could get away with stuff like that in those days. And
know.
not that I'm in the business of murdering anyone, but they could also murder people a lot easier.
They really could. But yeah, because it was just,
there's no forensics.
Well, and people also died every minute from like drowning
Well,
and accidents. So if someone just
true.
disappeared, they'd be like, huh, they probably just fell off a cliff yesterday. Like, I wonder, like, did they have big search parties and did they,
Yeah. And you might be able to change your name, but you could also die horribly of like a fever that an antibiotic could treat now. So, modern day or previous day, take your pick.
So many polls. We have so many polls we need to run.
So apparently this Christy Cleek guy is he's known as a type of bogeyman.
Oh, so he like morphed into a
ghost? Into bogeyman creature. Yeah. Used to frighten children, which even though this is a murderous, incestuous, cannibalistic story, I did manage to get a tiny little ounce of folklore in there. Because I thought that was cool that they kind of turned him into a bogeyman character.
Right.
I know.
So he must have been, well, I mean, so what were they? I mean, usually behind a bogeyman story, or boogeyman as they say it in the US, is there's usually some sort of, not moral, but like they're doing it for a specific reason. So was it like, be careful and don't wander too far because he will be there? Or like, what's the moral side of that? Do you know?
All the articles that I read about him didn't really go into that as much. It just was again a little bit like Elf Spot that was just like mentioned without going any further, just like Christy Cleek is kind of a bogeyman. And it didn't really go into it, but I'm guessing it was a like don't go off into the mountains because you could get eaten by a cannibal.
Right. That would be a good deterrent. I'm sure that it worked.
So even more fun fact.
Yeah, keep them coming.
This is the last one. Oh. This is the last one to round this story up.
Kind of sad it's the last one.
Sorry. It is the last one to round the story up. I then discovered on a weird website that was, because I started doing some more digging. This was just a website, a forum for people who go exploring caves.
Like a spelunker, isn't that like a cave climber?
I don't know, but it was like one of those people that want to go exploring caves.
Not this cave.
Forum. It wasn't just a.
I wonder how many caves have actual like cannibal ghosts in them.
Yeah, and I think they were discussing this cave and whether it was worth going to
fascinating.
Explore.
That's cool.
And someone said that apparently there was somebody living in this cave in the 20th century.
Shut up, really?
So I don't know how true this story is. So if anyone wants to delve deeper and debunk it or confirm it, they can. Yeah. But apparently this guy was called Henry Ewing Torbert, and his nickname was Snib Scott. And he was a normal guy. He was born in 1912, and he grew up in, I don't know, Dundee, I think it was. And he lived a normal life. And then something happened around World War II, which I'm suspecting is possibly PTSD, but not said it was PTSD. Because after World War II, he just gave up his life and became a vagrant and became homeless and went traveling, and then ended up at this cave. And he lived in this cave until he died in 1983.
No way.
And he was like a self-sufficient, homeless person. Yeah. He lived off of beachcombing and then swapping things that he found, or fish or things that he found on the beach in the local villages. He didn't resort to cannibalism like SAWNEY Bean, but he kind of just lived off of foraging and
Great guy.
lived in this cave. So Sonny Bean, if your ghost is listening to this podcast, you didn't need to kill anybody.
Yeah.
You could have foraged for
Seriously.
fish
It was
and
totally unnecessary.
all that murdering
Was
and the
just-
incest. Let's face it, the
Yeah.
incest is totally, it doesn't
mean,
matter how desperate you are for
although in
a
his
bit of
shagging,
it's
yeah.
totally unnecessary.
Although in his defense, he probably did say, you know, he didn't spend any money because look at all the food. He had like an endless food supply. So I do give him a little credit.
What, Sonny Bean?
Yeah, for being resourceful. I mean, you got to
Really?
give him an ounce,
Oh,
just an ounce of
God.
credit.
I
He
don't
didn't
know
even
if
have to
I
go
could
shopping, not one time.
I doubt there were shops in 16th century Girvan.
Shops in the country.
No, that was probably like the weekly farmers market,
Yeah.
and that was it.
True, but he didn't.
Come
even have
on,
to
there
do
was no
that.
Marks and Spencers in
He was
those
really
days.
self-sufficient. I give him one nod for self-sufficiency.
One
Little
out of how many?
2. Oh no, out of many. I'm sorry, so many.
One out of 10 or one out of
No,
100?
I just feel like he gets a little credit for self-sufficiency. They were a self-contained unit in that cave. They didn't need anything.
They also clearly had a lot of sex.
There was a lot of sex.
Because they had a lot of kids.
They did.
Oh, I can't bear to think about it anymore. It is kind of disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Just a little
Just
bit.
a little bit.
So this poor homeless guy lived in this cave. Apparently, I need to try and verify this. And apparently, he died in 1983 of hypothermia.
Oh, that's so sad.
And apparently, there's a cairn on the road,
for
not far from
him?
the cave, that's inscribed for him.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and apparently inside the cave, there's actually one bit that's kind of chambered off with a little door, and they found remains of what would have been a bed. I know. It's really sad.
Yeah, I wonder who did that for him.
I know. And that was the only website that I saw that on. Nobody else mentioned that, which probably was because they were just talking about Sonny Bean. Whereas I sort of went down the, like, what else is interesting about this cave rabbit hole.
Did you watch any of the YouTube videos on it?
I watched a couple. Yeah, they all kind of regurgitated the same story, basically. They'd all like read Wikipedia and
yeah,
like
as they do.
Like me. Well, I did too for this episode.
Yeah.
But I did cross-check with a few different websites because I can't just leave it Wikipedia. It's too boring.
Yeah. There's
always a little offshoot that takes you down a more interesting story.
I'm always amazed at how, like, if you feel like you've exhausted the research, and then for whatever reason, because you're just a nerd and you love like digging, and then I find, at least when I'm doing my research, like it'll be like the morning of when we record that I'll actually discover something that wasn't covered anywhere else. Like,
well, that's what I found it this morning.
Yeah, like that
about Henry Yoon Torbert this morning.
Isn't that funny? I know. That keeps happening to me, and I'll be like, "Geez, I'm so glad I didn't stop. Like, I never would have stumbled across this treasure trove of information or whatever." Once you get past the people that have all used Wikipedia as their only source, there are other little sources out there.
Yeah,
so
you do have to kind of
keep going,
keep going, and get past those, and go past the first page of a Google search, and find a keyword and click. So I then looked up what this dual tree was and the thing behind it, and what that all meant, because I found that super interesting. And then I looked up the psychic guy to see if there was any more information on what he'd seen, because most websites only mentioned that there was a psychic who'd said it was haunted. But I wanted to know what the experience was.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't stop at, it was just haunted, and then be satisfied with that. Yeah, for sure. No,
so I hope that was interesting, even though it was gross.
It was really interesting. And I like so much that it grew a little bit of some arms and legs across like centuries, and involving kings of different, eras too, which is pretty cool. And it's so random, but it's random and dark. So what's not interesting about that? That's like doubly interesting.
I hope we've not freaked everyone out, all our millions of listeners.
Visible listeners. No, but they will be freaked out when they see that ghost That ghost photograph.
That ghost picture. And I'll find some. There's a really disgusting Sonny Bean picture. Obviously, it's not a photograph because we didn't have photography.
Weird.
And he probably wasn't even a real person. But there's like a someone had done an illustration, I think, for one of these sensationalist broadsheets.
Well, if it wasn't real, then there wouldn't be psychic mediums like detecting the ghosts and all these things. There must be something.
Unless the psychic medium isn't real either. Unless
he's
like a Derek Okora and he's just made it up.
Of course he's. What do you mean he's not real? I just wonder.
Yeah, I always think there's always a basis somewhere.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you what you think. What do you think?
Yeah. And whether that basis is just a modern day boogeyman to a cautionary tale to keep kids away from caves.
Yeah.
Because caves are dangerous.
Yeah.
Although I did read in one of my sources, one academic whose name I can't recall, so I'm really sorry that I'm not quoting you, but he said there is actually a correlation between this story and supernatural notions of caves being entrances into other worlds with otherworldly creatures. And the fact
that's a cool folklore tie-in, Lucy.
I know, it's a whole folklore tie-in that we probably don't have time to talk too much longer about because I have an appointment in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
But the whole idea that all these people living in the cave were, even though they were human, they weren't quite human. They were a little bit less than human because they were seen as these savage creatures. And so they were people that had gone into this cave and become otherworldly almost. And this cave could be this entrance. And I found that super interesting because there's a whole load of that in Scotland with cave and the rest of the world, with caves and entrances into places in the earth that.
Well, I feel sufficiently thwarted. I would not go in there. No way. Would you?
It depends how much you pay me.
Oh.
I don't think I would because not because I would be scared, but
I would
because I would be a little bit freaked out at the idea of the high tide in the water and getting stuck.
Yeah, but you can just go around the clock for that. You can time it.
Well, I know, but just,
so you're scared of the water and
was it the beginning of lockdown where there were those kids in the cave and they got stuck, and I just there's a claustrophobia fear for me.
No, I get that. I get that. And it's also really creepy that if they were the only way for them to survive was to go way back into like the bowels of the cave. Like that whole thing is really freaky too. There was a lot. You did a great job. And there's a lot of, like tangents that you had to research equally. It wasn't just like it was like they all had significant things behind them. So that was.
Do you know what you're doing next week?
I have actually no idea. None. Which makes me excited to dive in.
I think sometimes it's fun, which I might do for the following week, to just get one of our books. And
I was just reaching. I know.
Open it on a random page, and then that's what the topic's going to be.
Strong and undue wishes. I know. Well, and because I feel like I've tackled some really like broad topics my last few, that I want to do one that's like super niche down and just do like one whatever.
I know, because there are a lot of topics that are very, very
broad,
and there are other ones that are very niche, like a specific mythological entity or creature or a specific tradition.
Exactly. So I think I want to narrow it down to do that. I just to spice it up too, because I'm like.
And the thing is that there's like a never-ending list of possibilities.
Ending list.
I know, we're never going to run out of ideas. We'll still be doing this podcast in
20 years.
2050.
Yes, I hope
if
so.
the world's still
I
here.
will be here. Oh, of course I will. Well, you did an amazing job. Good job.
Thank you.
That was super good. Yeah, I like learned a ton.
You're
I think it's definitely
grossed out.
something. Yes, I'm sufficiently grossed out. I think there's definitely something that happened because that's a big, long yarn to just be like all 1,000,000% made up.
I know.
So I'm with you. I think there was something that was definitely there. If you guys have a good story, historical or real, or a fun fact about Scotland or something that we haven't covered, which is a lot because we're still only under 20 episodes here, please email us.
Yeah, we love to hear stories.
At onescot1not@gmail.com.
And we'd love to read some out.
Yes. And we will share Jamie's amazing photo. And by amazing, I mean terrifying, on our blog, which is onescot1not.com. And also, I'm scared. Okay. I'm starting to amass a collection of freaky photos on my computer and they don't like it. So I'm going to have you post it to Instagram, Lucy, because
I will do.
I'm scared of it. Yeah, super creepy. And we will see you next week with a We Don't Know episode. We'll see you then.
Something fun. It'll be something fun. So come and join the fun.
Yes. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.